What's going on? What's going on, everybody? It is the Only Sports Podcast, the 101st episode of the Only Sports Podcast. You don't have to listen in order, but if you did, thank you so much. I'm Will. That's Casino over there.
How's it
How's your
going?
2024 going so far, Casino?
Well, I've been drinking less, which is good, which is nice. Got my hair cut, made me feel human. Dude, it's crazy the little things. Like getting my haircut done yesterday. Oh my gosh, I love it. I mean, it just makes me realize though how much more of a widow's peak I have than, dude, it's hefty. I have a hefty widow's peak. But no, I'm doing all right, doing pretty good. Yeah, how about you? What's up? What's up? You just got back from California, didn't you?
Yeah, I got back from Disneyland, which took the kids to for my son's third birthday. It was cold as shit. I mean, like at night, it was like 30 degrees. I was not ready for it. And then I got back to Vegas and where we both live, and it's as cold.
It's 29
This is the
degrees.
coldest Vegas. Yeah, this is the coldest Vegas has been in a while. Parts of the town are getting snow. You get snow?
Yeah, last year I think the low that it got to was 30. I think tonight is 29. Um, uh, yeah, so it's gonna feel pretty fun out. I'm gonna be out and about tonight too. I'm actually going to the night's Bruins game.
Did you get
Um,
did you get snow?
no, didn't get snow over here. Yes, Henderson area gets a lot of rain due to the lake being close, but we're not higher up in the elevation because the city kind of like has the slant. Um, we're not up by those mountains up there that pepper you with snow. So I should probably hit up all my friends and family who live up there and ask if they got snow. I just haven't talked to them today, but it's fun because if you get a good snowfall and then you get a hot spring, this is kind of how it's supposed to be. It's kind of like last year where it got really cold and then really, really warm. It's fun to be able to still see snow up at Mount Charleston when it's 100 degrees out. When finally Vegas is 100 degrees and you look up at the mountain, you're like, oh, there's snow up there. Huh. It's pretty wild. It's actually insane.
Well, now that our playful banter is out of the way, Casino, let's
Okay.
get into
You asked me a question.
just
No,
a
I'm gonna answer.
it was a crazy week for football, which we will talk about. But first, we need to talk about some legendary coaches that retired within a day of each other. They used to be on. I know Nick Saban. There's that thing going around where him and Bill Belichick are hugging on the sidelines of a Cleveland Browns team. So we have to talk, of course, about Bill Belichick. He is not retiring. It seems like he will continue coaching, just not for the Patriots. However,
Yeah.
Nick Saban is retiring from the Alabama Crimson Tide. Which one would you like to talk about first, Casino?
Let's hit college, and then we'll move in to all of the NFL coaches.
So I agree. Nick Saban won
Well, then
7.
why
I
why
repeat.
even ask me if you were wanting to do it anyway? So I mean, whatever.
No.
Fair enough. Playful banter.
Yeah.
Playful banter. Nick Saban.
Nick Saban, seven national championships, 1 with LSU, 6 with Alabama. Of course, he started coaching college in Michigan State, went to LSU, then went to Alabama. There was also that stint he had with the Miami Dolphins.
I forget about
His
that.
record. Yeah, well, that's crazy. But his record is 292-71, only one tie, never finished with a losing record, which is insane. Had 2 seasons where he finished 500, and then in the college football playoffs, he was 9-5, bowl games 19-12. And then in the NFL, I swear he only went one season, but apparently 2 seasons at Miami, he went 15-17.
Dude,
So
looking at this number, his total college wins, losses, uh, 297 wins, 71 losses out of all of his coaching, all of the places he's coached, all of this thing. Dude, that's over 80%. I mean, it's at 80%, it's like 86, but that's insane. That is an insane record. I mean, NFL is one thing, like college, with how much that turnover happens, is wicked insane.
yeah. So he did retire. I believe both him and Belichick are 72, right? I think they're both the exact same age.
Uh,
But
yeah, he's 72.
uh so Joe Paterno has the most wins in college football history with 409, but that was after a 46-year career at Penn State, which is fucking crazy. And then Bobby Bowden is number 2 with 357, Bear Bryant third with 323, Pop Warner with 311, and then right there is Nick Saban with, as we just said, 297. So it does feel weird that I know he's 72. He's obviously getting up there, but obviously Alabama was one win away from playing in the national championship. So it's not like he can't coach anymore. But it is weird to me that for a guy that brought Alabama back to relevance and, obviously won 6 national titles with them, he wouldn't try to beat the Bear Bryant record of 323 because you think he's averaging 10 wins a year. What? It's
Mhm.
at 297. That's 4 years, probably 3 and some
Yeah, let's
change
go 4. Let's
to
go 4, possibly 5. You never know how things are going to happen.
yeah, so he would be at 297 plus 4 years that would put him at 337 if he did 10 wins
But at
or I'm
that
sorry,
point, dude,
3
you're approaching 80. When he like you're approaching 80, man. Like there's a lot of reports out there, rumors, whatever, that he did this for health reasons. So, I mean, I think,
okay.
and I don't think it's like anything bad. I think it's just because he's old, dude. He's 72. Like, he's not 72 is fairly young nowadays, You're not croaking, every single day at 72, but you don't have much, like mid 80s is kind of where you see a lot of people start passing away. He's got, 10 years on his retirement, as long as he's still, decently healthy. I I
Yeah.
I can't imagine working that to that age. Like, I still think it's like pushing it, like 65. My dad's 65 and he's still working, but he's getting ready to retire here. That it's mind blowing that
That's like the
people
cutoff age. Yeah.
yeah, first off, yeah, that's insane. But that people choose to work. I know, understand you love what you do, but like choose to work and like a very taxing job like this into your mid 70s. Like, I know it's early 70s, but still, like, that's just wild to me. That's a lot, man.
Well, it's also the thing where it's like with college football, you need to constantly, if you're not coaching the games, getting ready for bowl games, like Alabama is always in, the playoffs at the end of every year, basically. So you're coaching extra games, and then the second those games end, then all of a sudden you're on the road recruiting, you're trying to get the best players to come with you, you're visiting kids' houses and stuff like that. So it does feel like a much more taxing job than being a coach of some other teams or other sports where it's just like the college football grind is literally 365 because if you're not coaching, you're meeting with parents, you're meeting with players. I'm assuming you're meeting with boosters and other people who want to, who run college football want to meet the Alabama head coach. So
Right.
I'm sure we only see a fraction of the stuff he actually has to do as Alabama's head coach. But in terms of the list I just read you off, Casino, those obviously the coaches ahead of him are coaches before our time. We started watching college football the end of Bobby Bowden, end of Joe Paterno, which obviously the Paterno name and is kind of tainted. Well, not kind of, it is tainted by what happened at Penn State, about a decade ago. But where do you place Nick Saban in terms of coaching greats?
Oh man. When it comes to college football or in general?
Well, we saw him in the NFL, and he didn't. He was there for fart in the wind and didn't really do anything. So let's just stick strictly to college football.
No, I was saying more like you said coaching. Like, is that like everything, or is that like all coaches from all sports? Blah blah blah. But no, definitely for college football. In my opinion, he's the GOAT, and I know that there's a lot of people that were before my time, that had great careers and all that stuff. But I just feel like in this day and age, it's harder to pay your players. I'm not saying that he did, but if you what, like that's harder to do. Back then, before our time, that wasn't, that was probably fairly easy to get away with. And just the amount of talent that's out there now, it's very tough. Like his recruiting has to be top notch because you have other teams. It's not like the NFL, there's 32 teams. College, there's so many teams that I think it's very impressive with what he's done in this era in the last 20 years on what he's done. I mean, 15 years or whatever it's been. I don't remember how many years he's coached.
28 years total.
28 years
and
total.
I also forgot. I said he started at Michigan State. He had 1 year before that where he was head coach of Toledo. So he coached at Toledo 1 year and then went to the NFL to help.
Dude, that was the year I was born, which is wild.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, obviously in our era, there's nobody that can touch him, and I do think that he's the best because, again, the amount of talent that keeps coming as more things are available to the masses, as we've gotten more intelligent as human beings, and got more ways to work out and this and that, and just the talent has went through the roof. That I think it's very impressive that he was able to stay with his team on top for as long as he did. Personally,
I think, I agree with you. I think he's without a doubt one of the best college coaches ever, obviously just by wins. But in terms of what he did with that program, he made both you and I Alabama haters for no reason other than they were always in the championship. They were always winning. They were always good. They always had a Heisman contender. Like, it's like they had the craziest stat I read. I believe if I can find it right here, this is maybe the most insane stat I can think of that showed how dominant Alabama specifically was during Nick Saban's tenure. He had, in his entire career at Alabama, he had more players picked in the first round than he did losses. So he had 44 first round picks. He had 29 losses. So he had 29 losses, 44 first round picks when he was the coach at Alabama, which shows.
And that's crazy because his first year was 6 losses alone.
Yeah. So that shows just how dominant he was. And I think also the narrative being lost in this is like what you were just talking about, where now college football has shifted the playing field to, we've never seen more players in the transfer portal than we have the past 2 years. We see now NIL deals are making it so players, you don't have to go to an Alabama or a Michigan or one of these big
Continue talking
schools.
about this. I got to make my kid a bottle. He's up.
There you go. But you don't have to be at a big school now to get, you know, money, because obviously everybody knows the elephant in the room for these big schools is they would pay their players under the table. I mean, there's, you know, I don't feel like I'm breaking news telling you that, but then there was, now it's quote unquote legal to where you can go to a smaller school and you're getting NIL money. And now all of a sudden, you know, there were the reports that Caleb Williams and some of the big name players in college, well, they're now mulling over if they'll stay in college or if they'll go to the NFL, because now they're making more money in college than they would on rookie deals in the NFL, which I actually think in the long term is going to help college football, maybe hurt the NFL because you're not going to be getting great players as soon as they become available. You're going to have to wait a year or two. But for college football, you might have guys who are projected number one overall picks, you know, staying in school. There was a report today that the college, or that the quarterback for Texas has stayed in school because he's, you know, Texas is obviously a very good team, but you might, in the years leading up to, who knows where this caps off at, but you might get players electing to stay in college longer because they're getting more money than they would on rookie deals. But I'm saying that Nick Saban left college football kind of at the perfect time, because not only is the transfer portal bigger, but the playing field is going to be bigger. So now Alabama doesn't have to win one game to get to
Yeah.
the finals. They're going to
Do you,
have to win 3 or 4.
do you think that weighed in on him a little bit? Because, I mean, I may have missed it, but something that always bugged me about Alabama, though, is they played a lot of powder puffs at the very beginning of their season. They would have maybe two, maybe three good teams in their season that they would have to play.
Yeah.
That's just me. And you know what's crazy is as I was looking at the stats about it, well, he only has 2 seasons where his team went undefeated. So, I mean, it felt like there was way more seasons that he went undefeated, but their team was never perfect. And if you're only playing like 3 good teams a year, teams that could possibly beat you, and you're letting one beat you, like, I mean, like,
Yeah.
just throwing
Well,
that out there.
that's,
Just throwing that out there. I mean, it's still, you got to go out there and win the games and prepare and do all that stuff. So that's not me trying to take any credit away from Nick Saban. He's, you got to still go coach and get your players ready. So, but
well, I
that is
also,
an interesting thing that I noticed.
yeah, I think it's the perfect storm of leaving it before it all hits, which is you have Texas, Oklahoma coming into the SEC. You have the NIL money. So now it's going to be harder to get players to go to big schools because they can make just as much money and be the starter at smaller schools.
Right. And you and I were just talking about that. So as UNLV fans, our quarterback just left. He had last year, he's played for UNLV, but he was getting top looks from big schools. Well, he was getting ready. He entered the transfer portal. He was going to Georgia, but he would have definitely sat at Georgia. But then USC approached him and was like, "Hey, here's some incentive. I'm sure there was some money talk, this and that, but he has a much better chance, if not already guaranteed, that he's going to be the starter at USC with Williams being gone." So, I mean,
Yep.
that money talks, man. And again, I don't know if there was money, but I'm sure there was some incentives, because, I mean, if you're getting about to get picked up by Georgia, if there wasn't any incentives out there outside of, hey, you're going to start, or you have a possibility of starting, like, I really feel like why would you go? I know UC's good, but I mean, Georgia's Georgia. Like, why wouldn't you go there? So you're right. Things are going to shake up tremendously with this moving forward, especially since the playoffs now have expanded. Because even when it was only the 4 teams, players are looking and they're like, well, I might get this much money and do this, but if I really want my shot in the pros, I want to try to be at one of those top teams that have a shot for the title. So as long as and it's still kind of skewed towards those same teams that we see every year. But now when you have 12 teams with the possibility of making the national championship through a fair bracketing system,
Yep.
that's going to make things a lot more fun to see, because players like, oh, the team that I would rather play for, and they're giving me the same compensation, was 20th in the college football last year. Hey, if I join them, we get a couple, one extra win or 2 extra wins. We're within that top 12. We're there. That's a gamble that I would like to take. So
Yeah. No, that's
yeah,
true. But we can both agree he was the goat of college football, definitely of our
college
era,
football,
and of probably the
definitely.
last 30 years. I don't even think it's close. But let's move on, Casino, to another goat, which is eerily similar and eerily tied to Nick Saban, and they always have been throughout their entire careers. We're talking about Bill
You give out
Belichick,
the
who did not
opening monologue here. I'm going to go grab my child and bring him so I can feed him. But you lay the groundwork, and I'm coming in hot, hot, hot.
So now let's move on to the other GOAT that is always linked to Nick Saban, and that is Bill Belichick, who is not retiring, but he did mutually part ways with the New England Patriots. So the speculation, the rumors are that he is up for, I mean, obviously he is a, you know, head coach that's just going to walk in day one to all these other teams that have job openings. So the job openings, and then we'll get into Bill Belichick. The job openings at the moment for head coach are the Chargers, the Panthers, the Raiders, the Falcons, the Commanders, the Titans, the Seahawks, and then, of course, the Patriots. So when it comes to the Patriots, over 24 seasons, including the playoffs, Bill Belichick had a 296 and he won 6 Super Bowls. Uh, and then the last, since Tom Brady left, it's been a rough couple of years, to say the least. But obviously, as much as Belichick and Saban are tied throughout history, obviously the most famous coach quarterback combo in NFL history is Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. He obviously also helped with those great Giants defenses that won Super Bowls as well,
Blech.
coached the Browns, coached the Jets for an hour before he rejected them to go to the Patriots. But as the
Oh, thank God.
podcast Patriots fan, what is your take on Bill Belichick? And we'll get to the games after we talk about the head coaching, but a disastrous last couple of years ends with basically a blowout loss to the Jets. But
And
I
you
think
you
that
said it. You're like,
was
how
all that needs to be
poetic would
said
this
about
be?
current Belichick.
Well,
Mhm. That was one of
here's
the
the
few
thing.
picks I got right this week.
I do feel like a lot of the times, well, so we talk about the Brady Belichick thing, right? Um, and Belichick, Belichick wasn't a good coach. You know what? I still think, I mean, he's still a good coach. You still have to be a good coach to go into those big games and win. You have to devise up a plan, whether it's, offense, defense, or the whole shebang, whatever it is, to win. Like, you have to have your team prepared. You have to do those things. But I think a lot of his success was due to Tom Brady, but vice versa. I've talked about it on this podcast before, where Belichick is a brilliant defensive mind. Like the Patriots this year, even though they got like third, they got third to last in the league. Um, the defense was pretty dang good there for some stretches when they had some healthy players. They lost 3 superstars right at the beginning of the season, which really, really hurt the team defensively. But as an offensive guy, as for when it comes to the offense, he's not the guy. Brady made the offense better, but it was also vice versa. So Brady going to Tampa, he had a great defense, he won the Super Bowl, and then the defense started slacking and he had trouble. So that was the perfect marriage, was those two. Greatest in history, like you said. Um, so Belichick, in my opinion, is still the greatest coach to ever coach NFL. Um, Regardless on having success after Brady or not having success after Brady, um, because of all those things that I just mentioned. But I'm think it's time. I don't like how he handled the offense um, this last offseason and during the season, cutting people, putting them back on the practice squad, flip flopping way too much. Three different offensive coordinators, one being a defensive coordinator, in the last 3 years for the quarterback. That doesn't give you good momentum to learn an offense. And then with that, you don't have superstar offensive weapons to help kind of navigate those rookies through that. So I love Belichick. I always will. I think it's time for him to move off. If he wants to stay as a coach and we get a good offensive coordinator, that would have been cool. But as a GM, he definitely needed to get let go of that to make those decisions. But I wish him luck wherever he's going to go, and I'm excited for the new era. And the guy that I've been pushing for sounds like he's the front runner with Gerard Mayo. He's an assistant coach for them. He played for them for years. I love the dude. I really hope that he gets a chance to be the head coach. I hope that answered your question well.
Yeah.
Press conference.
So Bill Belichick won. So now everybody says Brady has 7 Super Bowl rings, but Bill Belichick actually has 8
Yes.
because he won 2 Super Bowls as an assistant coach / defensive coordinator with the New York Giants. He won obviously 6 together with Brady in the Patriots. He's been in 12 Super Bowls, which is fucking crazy, as a coach, 9 as a head coach. He has the most playoff wins in NFL history as a head coach with 31. Also, the most divisional championships as a head coach with 17. So, with Nick Saban, there's obviously the discussion where wins and how it stacks up against the other greats. I think when it comes strictly to the entire landscape of a career, I think you can put Bill Belichick's resume to basically cancel anybody else out.
Right. And
Nobody's
so like
close with.
I was gonna say with
No, go
like
ahead.
Tom Landry and Don Shula and whatnot, looking at it right here, this just tells you the statistics on it. The most playoff wins, like Don Shula has 19, Tom Landry has 20, Reed 22, Belichick with 31. There's more games added up. There's more like the playoffs look completely different. So, like doing it now, and I was listening to Robert Kraft talk about him today. Doing it in this era, the era of football that he had to do it in, is absolutely wild. Absolutely wild.
Yeah.
So,
Well, he's
that's
also, of
just the
all the
most insane
coaches you
thing.
just mentioned, he's the only one who's ever had to do it in the free agency era,
Yeah, the
right?
free
So
agency area
now,
with the hard cap, not hard, but with the
yeah,
cap and all that. Like to do it in this era is just it's mind blowing.
no, I agree. And I don't think there's any
That's why
debate.
it's my push for him being the greatest NFL coach of all time. Like everybody can, oh well, he doesn't have the most wins or all this. Well, look at the era that he's doing it in. Like, come on. that right there should stand
Yeah.
alone as the nail in the coffin for the greatest coach of all time.
Yeah. And then, like every single coach, player in sports history, eventually your time comes where the game passes you by. And then all of a sudden, the things that worked as early as 5 years ago don't work anymore. And we obviously saw that where, like you were saying, his defenses were still great to borderline, elite, and his offenses were some of the worst in the league. And obviously, you pair him with Brady, and those were the recipes for, all the Super Bowls they won, all the Super Bowls they got to. But now it comes to, you just said Gerard Mayo. Also, another coach that is rumored for that Patriots job is one that was let go from the Tennessee Titans casino. And
Yeah.
that is a news that he's a great coach when first is everyone shocked they fired him, and
Yeah.
second is
And
all
you
of
know
a
that he's a
sudden
liked
this guy
guy.
is linked to yeah. All of a sudden, this guy is linked to literally every other coaching vacancy that's open.
Yeah.
And we are, of course, talking about Mike Vrabel, which I feel like we give so much credit to as a great coach, but his record with the Titans over 6 seasons, he was 54-45. So one more than
It's
he
maybe he's
lost,
just
but not
maybe
by
he's just
much.
one of the
But
most
again,
likable dudes.
yeah. So he was but the craziest thing about this story is apparently Vrabel's agent, or there were other teams. Vrabel's agents told the Titans that there were multiple teams requesting Vrabel in trade offers, right? Like, we'll trade you, like kind of like what happened with Gruden a while ago, where he was traded from the Raiders to the Bucks. But we'll give you compensation to get Vrabel as our head coach. And the Titans, again, prove what a bonehead franchise they are, and what a joke the GM and front office of the Titans is, said, nah, we're good, and then just released him anyways. So why would you, if you're getting rid of the guy anyways, why would you not try to get something in return for him? As if Mike Vrabel would be like, no, I don't want to go to this team. I'd much rather be fired. Like, that makes no sense to me whatsoever. But then again, this was the Tennessee Titans team that traded away AJ Brown in his prime, and then have spent the last couple seasons since they did that trying to find a wide receiver. So it's just, the Titans look and seem like a dumpster fire, which I think is what makes what Mike Vrabel did there so much better than his record indicates, which is
Right. I
just
mean, how many
all that GM and front office did was get rid of their best players. And all Mike Vrabel did was make them the number one seed in the AFC, what, a year, 2 years ago? Like,
Yeah. 2000 I
crazy.
think it was what, 2019 they made the AFC Championship game. I think it was 19.
Yeah.
But
So, and
yeah,
they were the number one
it's
seed like 2 years ago.
yeah,
Ugh.
it's wild, and just like the last couple years, we knew that they weren't as good as we would like them to be, and we'd be like, oh, we're they're not going to win. Like this game they're not going to win. Blah blah blah. But he makes his team and the players fight for him. He's such a likable dude that everybody fights for him, and they will win games that you're just like, wait, why did they win that game and lose the other game? Like, well, they lost the other game because they're not a good team, because what you alluded to is the GM and everybody there suck. But that team will do whatever they can to play and fight for their coach. And I love Vrabel. I've loved him when he was in New England. I mean, he won three Super Bowls with them. I'm a massive, yeah, massive Vrabel guy. So I'm all for it, especially when he used to have really nice long hair, dude. I'm just pulled up this picture. Dude, legit. Like, he has some flow. He has some flow.
Well, also, I feel like we're forgetting how long he's been a coach for, because it feels like he was just playing for, the Patriots, but he literally was started
Yeah.
coaching in 2011.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Was
'cause he
he
went
was
to the
at
Chiefs and he was there for 2 years after the Patriots,
no,
and then he started coaching, right?
or as a player.
Yeah.
No,
Oh,
as
yeah.
a head coach.
I'm saying as a
As a
player, he
coach,
went there for a player and then he started coaching. So yeah, 11 is when he started coaching.
yeah. So he went 3 years at Ohio State, and then he went 4 years in the Houston Texans before going to the Tennessee Titans for the past 6 years. His first 4 seasons in Tennessee, he went 9-7, 9-7, 11-5, 12-5, and then the last 2 years he went 7-10 and 6-11. So definitely feels like a guy that you would want coaching your team, because if you put the right pieces around him, he's going to flourish, because you saw him coach pretty mediocre Tennessee Titans teams to, again, like we're saying, AFC championship games, the number one seed in the AFC. Like, that's pretty impressive, especially with how stacked the AFC has been over the past couple of years.
Right.
So,
I just sent you that picture
would
of
you
his
want him
flow.
to be the coach? I will hold it up to the camera. Oh, yeah. Look at that. Oh,
Dude,
yeah.
that's some
Those are
flow,
some
man.
glorious locks. But you said Gerard Mayo. Would you be happy if Mike Vrabel was announced as the coach of the Patriots?
I'd be okay with it. I'd be content with it because I like the guy, but I want to see what Gerard Mayo has. I want to see what he can do. I think he's done great things as an assistant coach there. Um, uh, but I really would like to see what he can do as the main guy, as the guy. Um, I know all the players respect him. I'm sure he'll try to instill some of that same, and because we already know Vrabel does, instill like this is like the Patriot way in a sense,
Yeah,
and still stick to it. But I think the players will like playing for Gerard Mayo a little bit more than or Vrabel than they would Belichick personally. Um,
true.
so I would really like to see Mayo get his shot. He was one of my favorite players to watch on the team during his tenure there. So yeah, I wouldn't be mad if Vrabel gets the job. I mean, because I think he's a decent coach, and we'll see where the GM spot lands for New England. But if you get somebody who actually can put together a decent offense and actually go and get players, um, like when this just recently, DeAndre Hopkins up there, you could probably really help out a young quarterback. You didn't go get him, which was very, very frustrating. That those kind of moves are the moves that I want to see. We're going to be top 5 in cap space. I say we, the Patriots. The Patriots can be like top 5 in cap space. They got the 3rd overall pick in the draft this year, which is weird to say. I'm used to 32, but whatever. So yeah, uh, that's how I feel about that. Vrabel would be cool, but I would
Going.
like to see Gerard Mayo. I've been saying it for the last 6 weeks, 7 weeks that that's the guy that I want to see as head coach.
It was fun. But we're back with part 2. Part 1, you just got done listening to. If you're listening to the podcast, if you're listening to the full podcast on our YouTube page, I'm going to be uploading various clips of just different segments we're doing. So without further ado, Casino,
I
we
do.
did not record. Yeah, we talked yesterday. The only thing we talked about yesterday was all the coaching news. We kind of abruptly got cut off at the end. We were talking about Vrabel, but we both like him. We both think he's a good coach. We both agree with pretty much the majority of the sports internet, which thinks he should not have been fired, and he'll probably have another head coaching job by next week at the latest, probably.
Yeah.
We talked about Nick Saban. We talked about Bill Belichick. Now we're going to switch gears and talk about actual football games that were played, which was the national championship game between Washington and Michigan. Before we just dive into a Casino with our picks, you picked Washington to win. I picked Michigan, and we will reveal the final end of the year pick winner before we switch to the playoffs when we start talking about the NFL playoffs. But right now, let's talk about the Washington and Michigan. You thought Washington would win. I thought Michigan would. And then the score ended up being 34-13 Michigan
Mhm.
over Washington. A score that, if you watch the game, kind of deceiving because it was a really close
It was a
game until probably the
one-score
fourth
game almost
quarter.
the entire time.
Yeah. And then Michigan rallies off 14 points in the fourth to kind of take it away. Washington always felt like they were one big play away from getting back in it. And
You
then that
know
big play just never came.
Yeah, and you know what? They had their opportunities. I watched every snap of that game. Penix, he had 51 attempts, only 27 completions, but I want to mark that because yes, he threw 2 interceptions, but there was 2. I know of 2 that I can recall off the top of my head, plays where the throw was perfect, it was in the hands, and the receivers just dropped it. 2 of them could have gone for touchdowns. 1 for sure because there was nobody around. 2, all you had to do was beat 1 open field tackle, and I mean, those were momentum swings. Those were huge swings in the game that I feel like they were, as you said, one or 2 plays from being, on the heels of Michigan. I mean, they were the whole game, but yeah, it, Michigan winning, doesn't shock me. That defense was great. They had a lot of great open field tackles, a lot that Washington's normally breaking and getting down the field. But yeah, it was good. The one thing that makes me think that Penix is not going to be a first round quarterback or late first round, early second round was he's not good under the pressure. If he has the time, he's great. But under pressure, really showed with that Michigan defense what they could do and get to him. I didn't like the scramble. I mean, McCarthy didn't do anything. McCarthy only threw for 18.
What are you talking about? He's the best quarterback that Michigan has ever had.
Ugh,
And
10
he
for
went
18, 140 in a
140
national
yards.
championship game. Yeah,
And he
okay.
felt I was shocked
No,
at
they
the end of the
ran it
game.
down there. They ran it down their throat with
Yeah.
Edwards and Corum. So,
I was gonna
like,
say,
chill
I
out.
was shocked that JJ McCarthy had 140 yards passing. It felt like he had 4 yards passing. Like,
Yeah,
I don't remember. You're
they
talking
just
about
ran the
Penix.
football.
Yeah, he had Penix again had some great throws. I agree with you on the wide receivers dropping the ball, there being some missed opportunities. Penix kind of falling apart when even slightly pressured,
Yeah,
which we knew would happen because we talked about when we are making our predictions for this game. Number 1 offense, number 1 defense, and Michigan definitely showed up. Again, like you said, like there was some one-on-one tackle opportunities where you're like, if this Washington guy breaks this, he's gone. And then
yeah.
just an open field tackle. I mean, by everybody on Michigan, it didn't feel like they missed one tackle. They were
Yeah,
just
there was some good. So I wish that a couple of those connections with Penix and his receivers made it a closer game. But I still think Michigan, that defense was ready to play, and I don't think that even though it was a close game, I don't think Washington was going to be able to trump them at the end, even if it was like a field goal game at the end. So
no.
it was
And
fun,
then
but it was a fun game to watch. Like you're right, outside the very end, and Washington just trying to huck the ball down. It was close. They kept him in.
yeah, when it was 14-3 all pretty much all the first quarter, and then by halftime it's 17-10, and you're thinking like Washington maybe has a chance. They got a little momentum, and then it comes out in the third quarter. Both teams can't do anything. I mean, on third down, Washington was 2 for 14, Michigan was 1 for 10.
Hmm.
Washington went for it on fourth down 5 times, only converted twice, and then Michigan only went once and then didn't convert it. But yeah, clean
Yeah,
game besides
the interceptions hurt. I just can't believe I saw that. I didn't know Washington only had 46 rushing yards. That's insane.
yeah. Well,
I mean,
46 rushing
these
yards.
teams are literally just the complete opposite team. Like
Yeah.
hands down, just a complete opposite team.
Well, it's also one of those things where if you put Penix on this Michigan team, they're somehow a better team than the 15-0 that they went this season. But I feel like if you put
Whoa,
McCarthy
you get
again, you
the
put
greatest
McCarthy,
the greatest Michigan quarterback of all time.
Yeah. You put the greatest Michigan quarterback of all time, JJ McCarthy, on this Washington team. What are they, a 7-8 win team? Like, I know
Probably.
that's just hyperbole, but again,
Probably.
this feels like this Michigan team felt like the perfect example of what they try to do with Purdy for the 49ers, which is just like this guy, again, he didn't have a bad season. He went, oh, I'll pull it up here. He went 22-4 with the third highest rated QBR in the nation. But again, you have the number one offense. You have a top, I believe we talked about it on last podcast. It was a top 10 rushing attack. And then you have this guy, again, greatest quarterback in Michigan history. In every important game in these playoffs, including the Big Ten championship, he never threw for more than 150 yards, except against Alabama when that game went into OT, where he threw for 221 yards.
Hmm.
So again,
That's why
Michigan,
his stats are so good as a quarterback.
yeah, I'm not saying that he's not a good
No,
quarterback.
but he
I
just
mean,
has to hand the ball off. That's all he had to do.
yeah, when you have two running backs on your team rushing for over 100 yards in a championship game, you're not going to have to throw very much. I'm just saying that this crazy notion that after this game that all of a sudden Penix, who going into this game was projected to be the third quarterback taken, like a top 10 pick in the first round, and now there's reports coming out where it's like he might not even go in the second round. And now all of a sudden with McCarthy, it's like, well, if he comes back to Michigan, Michigan are front runners again, but if he goes into the draft, maybe he could be a first. And it's just like, can we stop? Like, we
No.
saw a guy with an absolute stack team throw 150 yards a game, and then we saw Michael Penix, who outside of, the Daniels for LSU, maybe had the best quarterback season in the league with 36 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, the 6 QBR in the league, and almost 5,000 yards passing, which is fucking crazy. Like, we just talked about the other guy who barely had 2,500, and then this guy almost had
Yeah.
double him.
Wild.
But as far as the other thing that goes into this Michigan team casino is Jim Harbaugh did the thing that only 3 other coaches have ever done in the history of football, which is win a college football national championship and win a Super Bowl. So, where do you put him in the pantheon now of just elite coaches?
Um, hold hold up. Pause that for a second. Fact check. Did he win the Super Bowl? That was his brother that won the Super Bowl.
Oh shit, that was his brother who won the Super Bowl. Yeah. Well,
Because
then
because he had that whole joke. He's like, now I can sit at the big kid table. My brother won a Super Bowl. My dad won a national championship. I won a national championship.
why would we have to
Ref-
cut that out? I'm leaving all this in. He didn't. So
well, I
he's
just
one
don't want
of
you to look like an idiot.
that's impossible on this
All
podcast.
right.
But
Like, yeah, that's
no, you're right.
he went to a Super Bowl.
His brother won the Super Bowl they played against. He won.
Yeah, that was
Uh,
that great Ravens Niners candlestick lights turning off game
yes. So his brother won the Super Bowl. He won the college football
with
championship. So
Colin
he's
Kaepernick
been to.
with Colin Kaepernick.
Well, he went to the Super Bowl, didn't win it. You're
Yeah.
correct, Casino.
And I do say Colin Kaepernick, and that's not anything because of political thing. He just went to Reno, and we're from Vegas, so I saw
Yeah.
him light up UNLV. I went on that road. I went on a road trip to go see. It was 21-21 going into the fourth, and I was like, "Oh man, UNLV can win the cannon on the road." And then all of a sudden, he puts up 5 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. I was like, "All right, well, I forever hate Colin Kaepernick. I hated it."
So I believe so there were only 2. That was the narrative where he could have been the third because the only 2 other people to do it were, or no, I'm sorry, the only other 3 people to do it were Pete Carroll, Jimmy Johnson, and Barry Switzer. Those were the only 3 coaches to win a national championship and a Super Bowl.
Nice.
So John Harbaugh won the 49ers. Jim Harbaugh could have won the Super Bowl. But when it comes to Jim Harbaugh, Casino, now that he won a national championship, obviously we've talked about it on the podcast where there were the issues of cheating and allegations and blah blah blah, which we kind of shrugged off as who gives a shit.
Everybody's
But
cheating.
yes, but because of that, do you think he stays at Michigan or do you think he takes his chances in the NFL with one of the 10 coaching vacancies?
If he gets a good enough offer, I think he's out. I think he'd go back. I think he goes back. I mean, obviously, he's not a bad NFL coach. He made a Super Bowl. He's not
Yeah.
bad at it. So I think he just wanted to. He wanted to go to college. He wanted to kind of get his roots back, and I mean, he crushed it. He brought Michigan organization back to the top. He did it, and at that point, you ride off in the sunset. Say, okay, I did my job. You guys come in now. You handle the rest. I'm going to go back up to the pros, and I have unfinished business up there. I think he leaves.
I think so as well. I think the two teams that just like pop when you're looking at the teams that are potential for head coaching, the ones that pop to me as like a Jim Harbaugh destination, for me it would be the Commanders and the Raiders. I
That's
say
fair.
Commanders because it's new ownership and they want to kind of distance themselves from the Redskin name, from the Washington football team name, start anew. There's no Dan Snyder there, big splashy coach hire. I think Bieniemy should get that job, but it's weird. We haven't really. Ron Rivera got let go, and there's been no rumblings or anything about Bieniemy being promoted, which again, weird to me. But then when it comes to the Raiders, we talked about Antonio Pierce. I think the players like him, but they did this same thing a couple years ago with, I believe it was Kotite, or I can't remember that guy's name.
I don't remember.
Yeah, like the interim head coach that all the players loved, and then they got rid of him to bring in John Gruden. So the Raiders have been known to get rid of player-friendly coaches like Antonio Pierce to bring in big splashy names, especially now that they're in Vegas. So to me, I think I would put all my like betting money on Jim Harbaugh either staying at
Well,
Michigan or going to the Raiders.
going next week into the next pod. If we haven't heard anything about the Raiders vacancy or whatever, I'll get on the inside scoop of that. I have a lot of friends who
Ooh.
are in the media that work the Raider games.
Oh, but speaking of, we just mentioned his name. Let's segue Casino into another coach that also, I don't know, he kind of did the Belichick thing, but if Belichick would have just stayed in the Patriots organization, which is him and the Seahawks mutually parted ways as coaches, and Pete Carroll will still stay on as the
I
uh
right.
Seattle Seahawks front office or something.
Yeah, so he's going to take a position in the front office. He's not ready to be done with football. I think he's done with coaching. I don't think this is, hey, you're a bad coach. We want to move off of you. Because look what he was doing with the Seahawks. Like, nobody
Yeah.
expected them the last 2 years to be what decent. And, look what they did. I don't think this has anything to do with they don't want him as coach anymore. I really do think that they were just, all right, let's time to, you know, I'm not Pete Carroll being, I'm done. I'm old as shit. I'm as old as Belichick. I'm ready to just kind of, all right, where's that front office cushy seat? Maybe I'll help you with the scouting and, GM work or get your coffees. I don't know. Something like that. But he's done. And you know what? Again, it's one of those things where at that age, like we talked about it last pod, like when do you call it quits? I understand you doing what you love, but at some point, I would feel like you just want to chill out for the rest of your life. Like you don't got
Yeah.
much time left. I mean, again, the average is for life expectancy is like mid to high 80s now or something like that. So
And he retired at 72.
yeah, I mean,
72.
okay, you give yourself a good 10 years to just relax, man.
Yeah,
Spend time with the
enjoy the
family.
fruits of your labor.
Fuck yeah.
Uh, with the Seahawks, I did not realize he had been there for over 14 seasons. He had a 137, 89, and 1 record, which is shocking because the 89 to 137 feels like a lot because I felt like all those Seahawks teams were pretty damn good. Even this year, they were 1 game away from taking the wild card spot. But he is, as I mentioned earlier, he's one of the only 3 coaches to win a national championship and a Super Bowl. Should have won 2 if it wasn't for that insane goal line interception.
That was phenomenal. But you know what? You bad call, but you got to give credit to the Patriots organization. There's like a 13-minute video out there that talks about how they actually planned for that play. Like they practiced that play. And
Yeah.
for some reason, like they were talking about, oh, why do we even run this play? Like, why would we even try this? We'd be like, oh, well, Belichick was like, oh, well, if they do this, like, now we're prepared.
Yeah.
So it was awesome. I'll send you that link. It's actually really awesome. But yeah, Pete Carroll, he's out. It is what it is.
I think he might
I
be
like
one of
him.
the most underrated coaches in college or professional sports because I feel like
I do like him. I have a frustration with how he chooses gum, but besides that, besides that, I don't dislike Pete Carroll. I mean,
also,
he had a stint. He had a stint in New England, so I mean, yeah, can't
yeah,
hate the guy.
yeah. And I'll this is one of those parts, Casito, where I'll just edit it out and put it at the end of the discussion we were just talking about because we forgot to talk about
I know. I
the
wasn't.
Washington guy.
I know.
Hold on, I'm gonna edit this part out. 1920. Okay. But now that we've done talking about the national championship game, Casino, there was news that the breaking news within the past hour of when we're recording this on Friday that the Washington head coach has accepted the Alabama job.
Mhm.
Thoughts on that move, Casino, to go from Washington to Alabama?
Well, I mean, I'm fine with it. He's going to lose his quarterback, this year. And as you said, that team was
Mhm.
Penix. That team was Penix. If they didn't have that kind of a quarterback, that caliber, making those kind of throws, like what you saw some in the national championship, but definitely in the uh, semifinal game. I don't remember where it was. Was that the Rose Bowl or was that the Superdome? I don't remember.
Which
Which
one?
wherever that game was. Was that one the Rose
For
Bowl game?
Washington? Yes, that was the Rose Bowl. Yeah,
Yeah. So I mean, he had great throws
I
in the
believe
Rose Bowl.
so.
Like, so you're going to lose that quarterback, and you don't know how that team is going to be. They're still going to be good, but it's Alabama. Like, you go take that job. If Alabama knocks on your door, say, "Hey, do you want to come and replace the greatest NCAA football coach of all time? Come on, let's go. We want you." Like, you take that fucking job. You take that job.
Yeah. Also, so the guy's name, the Washington head coach is Kalen DeBoer. He has a head coaching record of 104 and 12. So
That's
that
insanity.
is, I mean, if you want a big coaching hire in Alabama, might as well go get the guy you uh just saw barely lose in obviously the score indicates that they lost heavy, but again, that was still the fourth quarter. Go get the guy that you say, like you said, if we only had more pieces than just our quarterback, maybe we could have beat Michigan. Well, you go to Alabama, basically all they need is a
And
quarterback, and
you
you
didn't
just
have 2
had
drops, and
yeah.
and 2 drops that could have made that, a field goal game.
Yeah. So congrats to Alabama. Feel bad for Washington. Not only are they losing their all pro quarterback, they're losing their, again, as we just said with the record, their amazing head coach. But as Alabama haters, I don't want to say I hope he fails. I just hope he isn't good. Let's just say that. Because,
That's fair.
uh, yeah.
I do
But
so my buddy, who's an Oregon fan, he was really, really worried that the Oregon head coach was gonna go down there and take that position, But I love that press conference. He was like, "No, I got unfinished business here. I'm staying here." Like,
Yeah.
good on him, dude. Good on him. I think Oregon's they're getting get better, and I think in the next couple of years with that coach and that regime, because it takes about 3 years in NCAA to turn the tides on things. I'm excited for that. I'm glad
Well,
that he's staying. Good for him.
and you just lost the threat of Washington, who you lost to
Right.
twice this
I mean,
past
and the
year.
Pac-12
So,
is dissolved, so I mean, now
yeah. I mean, as good a time as any for
y-
Oregon to
yeah,
rise above what they've been over the
rise
past
above it.
20 years, which is a team that never shows up in the big games.
Right.
But it is time, Casino, to move on to the NFL playoffs. They start
Oh, but what
this.
did you ever talk to about our picks? What about our picks? Did you
Oh,
say our
they
picks?
are coming up right now.
Okay.
The NFL playoffs, Casino. But as you so eagerly anticipated, before we
Mhm.
get into the
I gotta
playoffs,
know, did I hold you off? Hold
we
off?
have to
Hold you
talk
off?
about this past weekend, and that was our week 18 picks. Uh you ended the season winning 12 games in the final week. I ended the
Really?
season winning 9 games in the final week, which was shocking to me. However, there is an asterisk here, Casino, because I don't know if you recall, I was checking at our predictions at the beginning of the season, okay?
Oh, no.
Which we said would count at the end. Do you remember the bet we made at the beginning?
No,
We
I
said
don't.
we got in a very heated discussion in our NFL predictions
Oh,
thing
shit.
where you said the Chargers would make the playoffs over a team I said would make the playoffs, them being the Dolphins. And the bet was for 5 points for the Chargers Dolphins. So, including all of our predictions
I still
together,
beat you.
Casino, at the beginning of the season, or I finished the season with 166. You finished the season with 165
No. Okay, so here, let me ask you this.
until
No, let me ask
hold
you
on,
this.
wait,
Nope,
no.
nope, nope. Let me ask you this. Did you add 5 to you and subtract 5 from me? Because that's not how that works.
No, no. I just forgot to include your predictions, which means you actually finished with 173.
Okay.
But I thought it was funny that before the predictions I included with you, I won by one. But I ended up losing. Final tally, Casino wins the season with 173.
Again,
Obviously, we
yet
threw
again.
in a
It's just like
couple
my
bets.
fantasy. Just like my fantasy, I can win regular season, but I can't get it. I can't. I've still never won a or a fantasy football playoff. I've gotten second. I don't have enough
Yeah.
extremities to fucking count that shit.
So
I can't
Casino
win the final
wins
game.
the regular season 173 to 166. Again, we included a bunch of college games, predictions. There were some other picks where we went against each other. So it's not like just the games, but for the second year in a row. Also, final Casino Fantasy Corner, you just touched on it then. I ended up losing. I
Oh, I didn't
came
even.
in
I told you I didn't make the playoffs this year.
yeah,
Chub
my
fucked me.
playoffs for the third year in a row, the first 2 years in my money league, first 3 years we did it, I came in second. This year I came in third. The guy who won the championship was the guy I did the big 4-player trade with. But here's the thing, he had already good players and then my players kind of pushed him over the edge. My players that I traded to him and the players I got pushed me into the playoffs. So it was one of those things where if we didn't make the trade, both of us would have failed, but he obviously took advantage of it. He won the championship. I don't know his name. So congratulations to that guy, but that's the season ending fantasy corner. Now,
You're in a money league who you don't know the people that you're playing.
well, it's all guys we went to high school with. It's all guys but I got invited by a guy I was on the wrestling team with, and I know like 3 or 4 other guys in that. But then there's like 6 other guys who are just friends with them who are also in the league because it's a 12-man league. So I only know half the league. The rest of the guys, I'm like, I don't know who this is. But
Huh.
yeah.
Okay, sure.
But I
Uh-huh.
mean, I trust them. We've been doing it for this was the 4th year.
Nah.
Uh,
Who's the commissioner?
the commissioner is the guy I was on the wrestling team with. So he's
Oh,
the one
yeah.
who
You
handles
were on the
everything.
wrestling team. I forgot that. I'm
Yeah.
gonna have to go through our yearbooks and see you with your
Bring some
nice
pitch. I mean,
strap.
yeah, I was
I
on
mean,
it all 4 years. So
yeah.
get ready for that sexy,
Well,
sexy
my
picture
pictures
frame.
in high school are the worst because I had a mop on my head that looks like a fucking helmet.
That's not true. You were Ashton Kutcher. You were
Yeah,
Ashton Kutcher.
sometimes. But the other time, it looked like I was fucking bowl cut or bowl kid, bowhead, whatever. I don't fucking know. Whatever those kids are.
But speaking of our predictions at the beginning of the year, Casino, we actually did pretty damn good on the AFC. I nailed every team except the Jags and Bengals. Obviously, the Jags shit the bed in week 18 in a winner
That was
go home
funny as
game.
shit.
The Bengals were obviously hit by injuries especially
Yeah,
with
so we never even talked
Joey.
about that. We still got to talk about that.
What?
Did we talk about that? I don't remember.
What?
The Jags losing that the
Well,
whole.
we're gonna
Oh,
when
I
we
don't
get to the
remember. I don't remember, man. This week's been a blur.
Your end, Casino, you also had the Jags and Bengals, and then as we discussed earlier, you had the Chargers going in over the Dolphins. And then on the NFC, I will say I almost nailed it. If the Eagles would have got the second seed, I would have gotten basically all the seeding right in the NFC, which is
Hmm.
crazy. But because the Eagles are not the number 2 seed, it fucked everything up. But I said we both got the Lions being the third seed, correct?
We knew they were going to win that
However,
division.
we both picked the Saints, the Commanders, and the Seahawks to get into the playoffs. None of those teams made it.
Right. Well, you know what? I still back my Seahawks one all day. And the Saints they did what they needed to do, and they actually had one of the two teams lose to get themselves in. So they were one game out of their hands to make the playoffs, which was right there. Seahawks were one of those teams. They were right there. So I mean, it was close for those two. Commanders, as soon as they got rid of their two edge rushers, I was like, all right, well, this is over. They're done.
Yeah, they definitely punted on trying to be a competitive team this season, which I think surprised both of us because obviously we both had them going to the playoffs. And then I don't care what anyone says. I think the Browns we could have seen coming and just picked wrongly, but when it comes to the Texans, if you're trying to tell me at the beginning of the season you said the Texans would not
No, I
only
think
be a playoff team but win
no,
that division, you're full of shit.
no. We said that we have to see what CJ Stroud does, but we don't expect him to do a whole bunch. Or it was something along those lines. We did not expect him to go from the second worst team last year to making the 4 fucking seed this year.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no way. No
I'm
way.
so excited that I'm so excited that the Texans get to host a fucking playoff game with CJ
Yeah.
Stroud. Did you see how excited that he was after they won that game? Before they found out they were going to be the 4th seed, but just knowing that they were making the playoffs when they beat the Colts. Like
Yeah.
he was he was emotional, but he was like keeping it together but barely, and he was just like he knows what kind of season he had. He knows. And to make the playoffs in your first season and you were the guy to bring that team back, like that's huge. Huge for him. I like him. I'm excited to see him even if they lose. Even if they lose in the playoffs, I'm excited to see him play a playoff game.
Well, let's go ahead and talk about that game
That was the best.
first.
That was the Segu.
There you go. We have now just playoffs in general. What do you think of the playoff format of they messed with it this year? We have 2 Saturday games, 3 Sunday games, and a Monday night game for the wild card. And then we have one of the Saturday night games being exclusive to Peacock. So you
I
can only watch
dude,
it on Peacock.
that I'm fine with that. I have Peacock, but dude, what a shitty way to do that, man. I mean, granted, let me just say this: Peacock is only $4.99 a month, so like it's $5 if you want to watch this game. $5. Like it's not a big subscription. It's not one that like YouTube TV special where you have to pay $70 for a month. Like this is $5, $4.99 or whatever it is for at least that's what I think it is. Still, I don't think it's gone up. for the playoff game. Not ideal, but it's only $5. But not being available to the masses is fucking insane. It's insane. That's worse, in my opinion, than the Thursday night Amazon Prime shit.
I
It's worse.
completely
It's
agree.
way worse than that.
Completely agree.
Way
Especially
worse than that.
because
Like,
not
it's not on
only
just regular cable. Like, people who don't have satellites or anything, they just have like fucking antennas and have 5 channels. How is it not on one? Like, how is it not available to them? Like,
yeah.
oh my gosh, like,
Well,
this is
also,
ridiculous.
this isn't even I would maybe have less of an issue if this was the 1:30 game. Cause then it's like, okay, it's the afternoon on a Saturday. Maybe you don't go out of your way to watch it or whatever. This is the prime time night game between the Dolphins and the Chiefs. Like that is a much more marquee matchup to me and I think to the general football audience than the Browns Texans. So how
Dude, I
these
don't know
two are
what
not
bars are gonna do.
flipped,
Like, what?
that's what I'm
Like,
saying. Like it's one of those things where if you're a bar, like one, especially one of these older, just like football bars, which is one of the Eagles bar I go
you
to.
don't have a smart TV or anything
Yeah.
crazy to
Well, and
like
then
do
just like,
streaming off of. Like, I
well,
know
just
for my
like
work
our
alone, it's
bars.
gonna be tough
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah. Because our bars aren't sports bars. They're just bars. But that also doesn't mean people aren't going to come in and be like, hey, where's the playoff game? And
Right.
you're
Well, I
just going to
mean,
be
like, so
like,
like for my place, we just got new TVs in. Because we got the new owners and whatnot, and they're gonna be fine. I'm sure one of them has a Peacock account or
account.
whatnot, and we have the smart TVs in there. It's gonna be no issue for my place, but as you're saying, a lot of those places don't have access to that. I mean, there has been a lot of places that don't show Thursday night football because, and I would go into it. I'm like, hey, do you got the Thursday night game on? Like, oh no, we don't have Prime, or we don't have the equipment to be able to stream Prime off of this TV. Like, we just have Direct TV, just regular cable. Um, they don't have any way to a smart TV or a computer link up where they can do a stream to it, or the TV is too old; they can't even do it like off their phone and stream it up and in. Like, it's insane. It's insane. It's
Yeah.
insane.
I'm also fine with the simulcast. If you want to put it on, like they do the Sunday night games, or you can watch it on Peacock or on NBC. But for it just to be a playoff game exclusive to Peacock is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like, what is the benefit of this? Again, you just said
Again,
it's a
yeah.
$5 subscription,
But a
but
lot of people
I'm
won't do that out of
guaranteeing you,
principle. Out of principle.
yeah. Well, and I'm guaranteeing you they would make more money from advertisements just putting it on basic cable television. Like if this was just on NBC, they'd make more money than it being exclusive to Peacock. The other issue I have is the Monday night game is between my Eagles, which are the 5th seed, and the Tampa Bay Bucks, which are the 4th seed. There's a scenario where the Eagles coming out of this game are the lowest rated seed, or the second lowest rated seed, obviously. And then they would have to travel to the number 1 or number 2 seed on short weeks rest. So why are we doing a disadvantage in playoffs, which are significant, a day disadvantage, probably 2 days, because obviously you're playing Monday night. If you're one of the Sunday teams, you get the rest of Sunday, right? And then all of Monday. And then that's basically a 2-day advantage over a team that now has to play a Monday night playoff game. Why did we
Yeah.
think Monday night
Because
playoff
it's all
games would
about money.
be
They
a good
don't care
idea?
about the
Like, I know obviously for
because
money
Roger Goodell doesn't care about the sanctity of football. Like, he doesn't give a shit about the NFL or the players or
or the
anything. Because a
safety
lot
and
of these
yeah.
players, yeah, sorry, thank you. A lot of these players could get hurt on short rest, being a playoff game because they're pushing to try to succeed. Like, dude, it's just wild.
Well, and ironically, earlier in the season,
this
AJ
is not
Brown.
wild card weekend anymore. This is wild card week.
Yeah. Well, also AJ Brown, I think this is ironic. I wonder if this was because of these comments where earlier in the season, AJ Brown said he hated Monday Night Football because it does fuck with your mind, or not with your mind, with your body and your preparation, and more people get hurt. This was literally a quote he said a couple weeks ago in this season. So now to have them be the Monday night game, which also, how is the Monday night game not the Rams Lions? To me, that seems like the marquee wild card game of the weekend, just because of the first playoff
Yeah,
game
but they
in
want it on the
years.
weekend. They want it on Sunday.
Yeah. But let's talk about the games themselves. Casino, you touched on it earlier. The 11-6 Cleveland Browns going into Houston to verse the 10-7 Houston Texans. Who you got in this one, Casino?
No matter how much I like CJ Stroud and the Texans at home, I've got to go with the Cleveland Browns. I've got to go with the Browns. I really like how they've been playing. Yeah, I think they're going to run all over them. I think this defense is too good. And I think they're going to disrupt CJ just enough to mess with them. So I'm going Browns. Going Browns.
Yeah. I don't think in the history of football, we just saw it in college. Whenever you have an explosive offense going against the number one defense, I would say 80% of the time, the number one defense beats the number one offense, just because the number one offense, you're playing against probably bad defenses, or definitely worse, because obviously they're number one. And so you're putting up numbers you're not always going to put up against other teams. With this Browns team, we've seen them play really good teams and smack them in the mouth. And then we've seen them play really bad
I think this
teams
is
and
going to be a
dominate.
close. I honestly think this is going to be a close ass game, dude. I really do. Like, this is a field goal either direction.
Oh, I think this might be Browns handily. I think this might be the start of where all of a sudden everybody comes to attention and is just like, this Browns team is for real, and the AFC, especially the
Could be
Ravens,
true.
needs to worry about them. Next up, we have or I'm picking the Browns as well, as you just said, Casino. Next up, we have a very interesting game, a Peacock exclusive. I don't know if you heard that, but it is the 11-6 Miami Dolphins traveling to 11-6 Kansas City. And the talk of the town in this game is, this is by all accounts going to be a snow game. It might be one of the top 5 coldest games ever played in the NFL. So this is the story coming out of this game, is this looks like it's going to be a weather game where it's going to be like colder than players have basically ever felt on a football field, which is going to be fun to watch. Not fun to play in,
I need
but
you
fun
to
to watch.
I want you to make your pick first, because I've got a juicy feeling about this one. Go for it.
See, I feel like this is so obviously a pick where it's just like, this is Kansas City all day. Kansas City all day. It's in Kansas City. You always hear the thing where it's like, these fast teams, the second they go up against like hard hitters, they're done. But these guys already played earlier this season, and it was a 7-point game. The Dolphins, going into this game, have the number one offense in the league, first in passing, sixth in rushing, and a top 10 defense. The Chiefs, on the other hand, second in the league in defense, only behind the Browns, sixth in the league in passing, 19th in rushing, and then 9th total offense. So these are two eerily similar teams. But again, I just talked about number one offense going against the number 2 defense, but they've already played them in a weird scenario, which is when they played overseas. I don't know. I think just how this Kansas City team, or this season, has gone, everybody's going to be picking them, and I just think Miami sneaks it out.
Damn it.
I think
I was hoping
this
you
is
picked
going.
KC. I'm picking Miami.
I think this is going to be a close game. Like
So
you
here's
said, a
my
3-point game. I think this is 3 points, Miami.
So I'm going Miami on this one for multiple reasons. It's supposed to be a cold ass game. There's supposed to be weather, right? You said snow, right?
I believe so.
I can't. I don't know if that one's true, but still, the weather. Just because Kansas City plays in cold weather, and they're used to it in Miami, they still teams still travel. Miami still goes up to Buffalo and plays. Like these players have played enough in this league that I think, like temperature wise, it's going to just affect everybody. To me, I don't see that being a huge thing, being the temperature thing. Um, I just don't trust Kansas City. I don't trust Kansas City's receivers. I think if you can fluster Patrick Mahomes early, that's going to mess with him. Um, I'm going to take the veteran offensive players for Miami. My kid's awake. The veteran offensive players for Miami over the team that just can't catch a fucking football.
That's very true.
And
Yep.
Miami, you said it has the sixth best rushing team in the NFL.
Just
Cold
pound
games,
that rock. Yep.
it's just pound it, pound it, pound it. And then they're going to be expecting that. And then you break one loose to Tyreek Hill down the fucking line. KC, they don't really have much of a running game, in my opinion. I think what you said, it was 10th or something like that.
No, it's 19th.
Oh, 19th rushing. Yeah. I think Miami controls the clock. I think they control the ball. I think Mahomes is going to get frustrated because some of his players and receivers are going to drop the ball early, and that's going to spiral. Everybody's picking KC in KC with this weather. I don't give a shit about the weather. Normally I do if it's like raining. The snow, yes, has an issue to it, but with that, just grind the ball out. Pound it,
It
pound it, pound it with the rushing. Dude, put
so I just
Archita
read
or whatever his name. Fucking let him go off.
I just
I'm
read this
gonna
where
start my
you
kid a bottle.
said with the weather, it's going to be -8 degrees, but with the wind chill, it's going to feel
130.
between -20 and -30 degrees. So that is, I mean, you couldn't pay me money to play in -30 degrees where people are going to try to be hitting me as hard as humanly possible. Like that sounds like an absolute nightmare, but that'll definitely be a game that'll be fun to watch exclusively on Peacock. So don't go to a bar that doesn't get the Peacock package, or I think they still get the game through DirecTV Business, blah blah blah, who knows. On the other side of the AFC, we have the team that shockingly finished the season as the number 2 seed, where the talk of the town for 2 months was that the Buffalo Bills might not even make the playoffs. They rattle off 6 straight, get to 11-6, and they will be having a home game, kind of, and we'll get to that, when the 10-7 Pittsburgh Steelers travel to 11-6 Buffalo Bills. I mean, in terms of difference of rankings, if we're just going by stats, it could not be more night and day, especially for playoff teams. The Bills, top 4 or 4th highest offense, 9th highest defense, 8th in passing, 7th in rushing. The Steelers, 25th in offense, 21st in defense, 25th in total passing.
How did they fucking make the playoffs?
Uh, by just on a hope and a prayer. The
Yeah.
last meeting these two teams had was in August. The Steelers actually won 27-15. So this is a revenge game in Buffalo against the Steelers. Well, except for this game might be moved to Cleveland, I believe was the last thing I read. Have you read anything about that, Casino, where this game might be moved to
No.
Cleveland? So this game might be moved to Cleveland because it will be too, I believe it was snow was the issue. So there will be too much snow.
You get
And there's a
paid
winter
millions
storm.
and millions of dollars fucking play in the snow. They scrape it off.
Yeah.
God damn,
So
dude. Play in the goddamn snow. If they get moved because of snow, I'm gonna go punch Roger Goodell in the face.
So there's rumors, but as of 7 hours ago, apparently they needed to alert the ticket buying audience earlier. So it looks like this game will be played in Buffalo with snowy conditions. So not only will we have a Saturday game where it might be the coldest ever, we're going to have the first Sunday game maybe be in snow. Who you got in this one, Casino?
I
The
got
Steelers or the
Buffalo's
Bills?
gonna roll them, dude. I think this is the blowout of the wild card weekend.
See, you say that, but we always think the Steelers are going to get blown out, and then they just play really close games. That's one score. I feel like this is going to be a 7 to 3 point game going into the fourth quarter, and then maybe Buffalo fucks it up. Maybe Steelers sneak away with a victory, but I don't see that happening.
No.
I think
this is the big. I think out of all the games, this is the game that I would have the largest margin in of victory for.
Okay. But yeah, we're both picking the Bills. Steelers win this game. Sorry, Steelers fan who I've sided with all season, but even know this is your peak was getting into the playoffs. Next up,
I really want to know. I want to know Steeler guy. Like, I just want to get to know him.
He's our most famous fan, and we don't know anything about him. Comment below. Tell us what you know about, or tell us if you think the Steelers can actually win this game. Next up, a game I feel like I know where you're going, Casino. 9-8 Green Bay Packers going into 12-5 Dallas Cowboys. Green Bay 11th in total offense, 17th in defense, 12th in passing, 15th in rushing. Cowboys top 5 offense, top 5 defense, 3rd in passing, 14th in rushing. The last time these two played was over 2 years ago. Haven't met this year. It was a 3-point game. Casino, we'll be right back. So for me, see, this doesn't feel like the game where Dallas fucks it up, right? This feels like the game where Dallas absolutely rolls them, and then you have the entire media tripping over themselves to be like, Cowboys are going to the Super Bowl, and then they shit the bed the next round, right? That's always what happens. The wild card is not where they mess up. It's always the divisional round. So for this one, especially because it's in Dallas and we've seen how good Dallas is or has been for this season at home, you got to pick Cowboys. I really think this one and the Browns Texans game have the chance to be blowout games of the week. But also, there's been a lot of history being brought up between, all the Cowboys and Packers game, that famous game where did Des Bryant catch it? Did he not? Which I feel like was the start of every ridiculous, was it a catch or was it not a catch argument started right there. For the record, as an Eagles fan, I don't think he caught it. That ball was wiggling all over the place. So Casino, this is my pick for one of the games I think is going to be a blowout. I'm picking the Cowboys. Do you have the balls? Do you think the Packers are winning this game?
No. I don't think the Packers will win this game. I want them to win this game. Well, I want to see Jordan Love go in there, and I have a hard time seeing the Packers being the team to beat Dallas, but I've already know that I've said it on the podcast that, I think Jordan Love can go and do it. I do think he could do it, but I just don't think that it's going to happen. But if he does beat him, I'll be like, you know what? Good on him. Like, Jordan Love's having really good end of his season. Dallas, yes, they're at home, but they've been getting help. I just can't. I just can't see Dallas being this dominant at home, for the whole season. I just don't. I like Jordan Love, but I think that the Dallas will probably beat them by like a field goal or something. But I think they might, fuck it. I'm done. I'm picking the Packers. Packers all day.
Whoa. I Jordan hope your reverse jinx works, because man, what a fun podcast that'll be.
On our next episode. I'm going to pick Packers. You know what? Jordan Love, if he keeps playing how he's playing, I do think that they could pull it off.
I love it. I'm still picking the Cowboys. I don't think they get him. I don't think they lose or ever get embarrassed in the wild card round. It's always the divisional round. So when it comes to the next round, I think that's where we all of a sudden start seeing, especially if they blow out the Packers, it's going to be the media tripping over themselves to crown them champions before they played anybody. Next up, I mean, how is this not everybody's most anticipated game of wildcard weekend. The 10-7 LA Rams going into 12-5 Detroit, who are having their first home playoff game in 30 years or
Love it.
something like that. 27, I believe. But it is Matt Stafford returning to Detroit. It is
And it's crazy.
Jared Goff.
Since that switch, these two quarterbacks, their stats are almost identical.
Yeah. So,
They're
and it honestly worked out for
they're
both.
almost
Like,
identical.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
I don't know
these two
if you
teams,
send it to me or if I just saw it randomly, but I saw I don't know where I saw it, but I saw something and it showed since the trade, all their stats in every category, and they're off by like off each other. They're about 1, maybe 2 points each direction. Like that's it. They're pretty much identical since the trade.
yeah. The Rams kind of picked up steam at the end of the year. 7th in total offense,
They're
20th
good.
in total defense, 10th in passing, 11th in rushing. The Lions, on the other hand, 19th in defense, 3rd in offense, 2nd in passing, 5th in rushing.
Yeah.
Shockingly to me, they're 19th in defense because I thought their defense was much worse than that. But they do get
No,
pressure on
it
the
was just
quarterback.
so bad last year. They've I mean, going
Yeah,
from
they
the
went from
32nd
32nd to
to the
19th.
19th in a
Yeah.
year, not bad. Not bad.
No.
You halved it. You halved it.
And remember,
And
that's literally what we said at the end of last season was
yeah,
if this Detroit team could have an average defense with this same offense, they would be legitimate Super Bowl contenders. And now
and they
they're the
are.
3rd seed in the NFC and
Yeah.
3 wins away from being in the Super Bowl. Who you got in this one, Casino?
I'm going Detroit, but it's gonna be a scrap. This is gonna be fun. This is gonna be fun. You know Stafford wants to come back here and just shove it up their butt, but I and he's gonna do everything he can. I think he's gonna do everything he can, but I think the Detroit fans are gonna win this game for for Detroit because they're gonna be so hyped up.
Yeah.
They're gonna be so hyped up and so rowdy. I you're gonna have trouble hearing out there. There's gonna be a lot of calls. I think there's gonna be a couple timeouts called because I just can't hear. I don't know what the play was.
No,
Uh,
yeah, I completely
this is
agree. I
exciting.
think I think we get a great Matthew Stafford game, but I think we get a better Jared Goff game to kind of prove not only his former coach wrong, but the doubters wrong about people who still, think he's not as good, especially this season as he has been. I mean, he's the second. They have the second best passing offense in the entire league. He's looked great in games, in big games this season, and nothing bigger than this one. I'm taking the home team as well. I think this is Lions in a great game. This is one of the few games where, as much as I would love the Texans or Packers to upset who they're playing, I don't think it happens. This is one of the few games where I would not be shocked if the Rams go in there and win. I
Mhm.
think they might be the dark horse team in the playoffs that no one's paying attention to that I could see
No,
getting on like a
I
run.
think the Browns are. Like we've already discussed
Well,
it.
but yeah, I think,
So
but the
so
Browns,
are
everybody's
we are
picking.
we in true picks right now outside of the Dallas and Green Bay game?
Yes, we're
All
lock and
right.
step. Next up, last one, as we just talked about
Woo!
it, Monday night game. My 11-6 Philadelphia Eagles travel to 9-8 Tampa Bay. The Eagles, 8th in total offense, 26th in total defense, 16th in the league in passing, 8th in rushing. The Buccaneers, 23rd in both offense and defense, 17th in passing, 32nd in rushing. So this is the worst rushing team in the league. Baker Mayfield is also messed up. Ironically, these
Yeah.
teams played earlier in the season on Monday Night Football, which is weird. The Eagles won that matchup 25-11. Who you got in this one, Casino?
I know they've been on a skid, and I know their defense isn't great right now. They were 1-5 in their last 6, but I'm going to take the Eagles mainly because Tampa they had with Baker a decent passing game, but they have nothing else. They have nothing else, in my opinion. So I can't see the Bucks. And I know the Eagles lost to shitty teams, but I just can't see the Eagles losing a playoff game against the Bucks, who have question with health right now.
Yeah. Baker Mayfield, I mean, great season from him. Finished the season, the regular season, 24% completion percentage, over 4,000 yards, 28 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Just crazy. But when it comes to the Eagles, I agree with you where it is the last 3 weeks have been a weird microcosm of games they needed to win that they kind of punted on. And then all their players now are kind of making it seem like they were just waiting for the playoffs. And now they're trying to spin it as like, we didn't even want to play at home. You want to play on the road because we're better on the road, underdogs, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Like, I'll take everything you're saying at face value, but if you come out in this game and lay an egg against again, 9-8 Tampa Bay team that is much, much worse than the team you dominated on Monday Night Football in week, I believe that was 3 or 4, when the Bucks were undefeated and everybody was picking them as like a dark horse playoff favorite, that you literally held to 11 points and had your way with them. So this is a much worse version of that team. Baker's beat up. You're beat up, but you should have everybody back. I believe AJ Brown's the only like big name player that is going to be a game time decision. You lost your safety, Sidney Brown, for the season in the Giants game. That Giants game, I will forever never think or talk about that game after this, because why are you starting any starters? Instead, you decide to start half the starters and then
All right,
two of your guys
we
get
don't have time
injured.
for a BJ rant right now about
Yeah.
the Eagles.
Well, that's the end of it. It was just a dumb move to start anybody in that game. Punt on that game, rest everybody. You guys have been injured all season. So this is the put up or shut up game, obviously, because it's win or go home. I think the Eagles win this game, even though I don't want them to win this game if the fact happens that they win this game and then they either have to go to Dallas or 49ers next week and just get fucking annihilated. So please lose this game if that's what's going to happen in the divisional round. But as for the wild card round, I believe they could win this game. They've been talking like a team for a month that's just been looking ahead to the playoffs. Well, the playoffs are here.
They're here,
So
baby.
now's your chance. So
They're
we're
here.
both picking the Eagles. Only game we picked different was Packers Cowboys.
Oh, I can't
Obviously,
wait to
it's
win
not
that.
gonna
I
shape up
can't
like
wait
that.
to win that one. Can't wait.
If you do, I will pop a bottle of champagne on this podcast because
You
that'll
don't?
be
Do you
awesome.
truly think that Love doesn't have what it takes to beat that Dallas defense?
No, I'm not saying that at all. I just think if this game was in Green Bay, I'd be picking the Packers outright. I just think it being in Dallas is one of the reasons why, when it was looking like the Cowboys were going to be the 5th seed, I was like, there's no way they win a playoff game, let alone, multiple. But now that they're going to potentially, well, no, they most definitely will have 2 playoff games at home. I think this is a real shot of them going to an NFC championship game for the first time realistically in a decade. So I just hope and pray as a Eagles football fan that either I am not watching a Super Bowl with the Cowboys or Niners in it. Just please, if the Eagles don't make it in the NFC, somebody else please do it.
Lions.
I don't want to see those teams.
You want the Lions?
I do. If the Eagles lose this weekend, I will be and the Lions win. The Lions or Rams win. Those are one of the teams I'm rooting for if the Eagles are out. So Lions or Rams, you're playing to be my bandwagon team in the Super Bowl. Obviously, I would like the Ravens to win for Lamar Jackson, but we'll see how that pans out. I also think, again, if I don't think the Eagles have a realistic shot of winning this season, but I think we both agree most fun Super Bowl matchup as a football fan would be Browns Lions.
That would be fun.
That's the one I'm rooting for. Yeah. That's what I want to see.
That'd be good.
But this has been the Only Sports Podcast. We will see you next week. My 2024 New Year's resolution after this episode is we always have a Tuesday and Friday podcast, Casino. That's what I'm gearing. That's what I'm hoping.
Are you saying that's what my resolution has to be too?
Yes. And that
Good luck.
baby's resolution as well. But yeah, this has been the Only Sports Podcast. I'm Will. That's Casino and his baby over there. And yeah, enjoy your weekend of playoff football. We'll see you next episode to talk about it. Adios.